Welcome to another episode of the Vital MX post-race show. The 7th round of Monster Energy AMA Supercross has been and gone. Arlington, Texas, the second Triple Crown of the season. It really feels like we're rattling through this thing now. And once again, as I said last week, despite some of the negativity surrounding the series because of injuries to Jet Lawrence, Eli Tomac, we once again have a barnstormer of a race to talk about with multiple layers to dissect. There will undoubtedly be debate because it's not quite simple. And yeah, this is developing into quite a nice little series. Not what we all expected, of course, but this has real potential. And we will talk about that on this episode of the Vital MX post-race show. Of course, without going any further, we need to thank Decal Works, Yamaha Motor USA, Yoshimura, Fox Racing, and new for this week, Motorex. So thankful to have Motorex on board for the show. You'll be hearing more from them a little later on. Crucially, a sponsor of Chase Sexton, so in the same vein as Decal Works. Look forward to some creativity there. I'm your host, Lewis Phillips, as per, joined by Michael Lindsay. Hello, how are you?
Tired. Hello.
Well, let's perk up that energy for the next hour.
We're trying.
And then you can be tired afterwards.
Next hour, that's about all the sleep I've had in the last 2 days.
Oh, I don't want excuses. I want results.
Okay, fair enough.
And speaking of results, do we start with 450 winner Cooper Webb? Or do we start with 450 third place finisher Chase Sexton? Or, if you want, we can start with Ken Roczen, although that would be a weird decision.
No, we start with Chase. Chase is... I hate not that Webb winning isn't a massive talking point, but particularly the night we saw from Chase, I think, is the main talking point on most people's list at the moment.
Okay, so
do you have your legal defense ready?
No, and I guess I need to disclaimer myself here. I'll be honest. You start, because I really don't know where I land on this.
I mean, it's a tough one. I'm just looking mostly at the points the last three races, and I get take the start situation last week. You talked to him, people pegged him as, he was trying to time the gate, and he came back and just said, no, he did it because of the flinch. But then you also have running into the person in the first corner, and the weekend before come around, you look at the points haul over the last three and looking at the broad picture of him versus Webb for the championship. I mean, you had a pretty long conversation in last week's episode about what does it take for Webb to win this title? What is that title run look like for him? Is it luck going his way? Can he beat him heads up? What do those stats look like, etc.? But you look at the last three rounds and the amount of points that he is basically, in a sense, within his control, has handed to Webb, whether you want to say they're genuine, just errors, lapse of judgment, bad decision making, whatever combination the last 3 weeks has led to, they have been errors that could have been avoided that have now handed the red plate to Cooper Webb. And we, of course, are on 3 weeks straight of doing that. So outside of just what happened last night, it's not a great trend for this championship. And the one last night points out as the most unusual because the overall win was within hand. I believe he was asked that afterwards if he knew that, and he said yes, but he wanted to go for the win. On one hand, applaud the man for giving his best no matter what. On the other hand, you back up and take a look at the championship and go, Webb would not ride like that for the championship. And I don't mean to be terrible in saying this. I 100% called it. A bunch of us photographers are on the floor. We are in the middle of the third main. So we're pretty overshooting. We've shot the same thing all night. We watch it, and one of the guys next to me goes, oh my God, Chase is going for it. He's going to catch Webb on the lap. He's going to get to him in the middle of the last lap. And I said, yeah, but he's going to throw it away at the rate he's going. And 4 corners after I said that, it happened enough that I have 2 photos of it because I pulled up as soon as I saw him try to triple it, I was like, nope, he isn't going to make it. And I picked up my camera and I caught it late. But
Mr. Negative.
It was that, I hate to say it was that predictable. It was not hard to guess it was going to happen. And at this point, it's it's a sense of like, even why last people kind of jumped on the bandwagon a little bit, as you like to say, the slander, the hate. People just want to see better decision making. Like I said, you can go through all the decisions, and hey, some are genuine mistakes, some are out of his hands, some aren't. But when you look at the broad picture of the last couple of weeks, can you completely argue that there isn't some fault to the rider and decision making skills?
Okay, so this is my first question. Is this a trend? Because ultimately, each race was very different. Tampa was the middle of a race. Detroit was lap 1. Arlington was the final lap. And all very different mistakes, issues. So do you lump them all together as this is a clear pattern? Or, I for sure put Tampa in a different category because based on what we talked about, I felt like bike setup got away from him. I don't feel like that was him riding over the edge. I don't feel like that was him forcing something that wasn't there. I just think it was a genuine mistake as he was fighting bike setup late in the race. So that goes in a separate box for me, without doubt. Detroit and Arlington, I guess they could both be filed more under, or they would both be filed more under rider error in my mind. That is more comparable, but I certainly don't put Tampa in the same vein.
Yeah, like I said, they're all different. It just, in a sense, there is a little bit of a trend pattern, which hurts when you just look at the results the last 3 rounds, which has, again, given Webb this red plate. You go back last 3 rounds, just change the script. Let's get through these races, whether it was backing it off, whether it was just, not making some of these decisions. How many points is he up? Instead of being down 5 points, is he up 15, almost 20?
I don't think it would be that drastic, but I mean, this week, it's very clear and easy to make that assumption because we kind of know, similar to Anstey in the 250 main last week, how that was going to play out. Detroit, who knows? If it whole shot that race, maybe he would have crashed even bigger on lap 4 and then DNF'd and it actually,
Total ifs and buts, but if you look at the pace, you could assume, or you could argue, the last 2 weekends should have been 25 points each with Webb at 22. That would have been a 6-point swing. The weekend before, Detroit doesn't have issue, another 5 points there or something. So not drastic, but we could argue being up versus down. Like I said, Tampa is its own thing. You get to the last 2, like what's happened between the last 2 rounds? Does it change Chase's approach? And if you're a rider, like on one hand, it's very easy to go, oh, a rider will learn their lesson. They'll change their approach. However, how much does that also affect a rider once they get in their head and they have to change their decision-making process during a race? Does that actually affect the result worse than, just changing the mindset actually affect the result worse?
I would say no, because I think that approach is looking at it as if this is the first time Chase has ever had this happen. But you can draw on 2023, not so much last year, but his title-winning year, and there were instances like this. So it's not like this is an all-new situation where it's like, oh my God, like how do I handle this? In a weird way, and this has always been my little, I don't know what you'd call it, weakness. I do admire the send on the last lap. I do admire I know I'm winning, but fuck it, I want to win properly. I don't know. I've similar to Jeffrey, I've always admired that in a rider. So I'm not I almost can't criticize that because I do applaud it in a weird way.
Yeah, like I said, there's a level of respect that comes with it of I just want to be the guy. It's just, okay, the competition particularly we're talking about is Webb here. And it just falls in the category, like, I guess in that sense, there is that I just want to win. So is that just 100% self-worth, self-satisfaction? Because we know Webb's mentally strong. It's not going to affect Webb if Chase blows his door off in the last lap. I think Webb's aware that Chase on a pure 1-lap sprint can beat him. I don't think Webb has, Webb's not going to tell you Chase is better than me, but you put him on a lie detector and ask him, can Chase beat you in a 1-lap sprint? Chase can beat him in a 1-lap sprint. I think he knows that. Like compared to other riders, like you look at what Webb has done to Kenny by doing similar things, it's like, okay, you can see a mental effect, but what was Chase going to gain by doing it other than self-satisfaction?
Yeah, but I think self-satisfaction is massive, isn't it? Like that's what these championship runs run on, because I think I've said this a few times in recent weeks. Riders can win a race and be down on themselves because they're like, I rode terrible. Yeah, I won. Who cares? That wasn't good. So...
But that's the other thing. Does Chase, like, as good as he's riding, does he need does he actually need the self-satisfaction that I was able to just blow his door off my life? Does he need that to operate?
Again, honestly, and people might not like this, I'm watching this main event and I'm seeing Jeffrey. Like, I'm having war flashbacks.
Where's Jeffrey right now?
Honestly, this brought me back, and I've said this on so many podcasts, but I'm going to wrap it up really quickly again. 2018, Indonesia. Jeffrey returned from a broken collarbone mid-season, was still leading the championship, or had just lost the championship. He was in the mix. Hadn't ridden, turned up in Indonesia, won the first moto. Second moto, he was in second, so would have tied for the overall. Championship-wise, brilliant. He's chasing down Caroli. The team are hanging over pit lane with their hands clasped like that, begging him to just not go for the win. Like, I've never seen a team have so much emotion of like, please, like genuinely like so animated, like please, please, please. There was a tabletop before pit lane. One lap, Hurlings hit a kicker because he was starting to push and he was getting tired from a lack of bike time. Almost died. Still went for it, and ultimately in that situation he pulled it off and went 1-1, which is why it sticks with me. But I had such almost identical situations in a way, and I had flashbacks to this. And I don't know, maybe this race will stick with me in a similar way to that Indonesian race has. But Jeffrey, up until maybe a year and a half ago, had this mentality of, I do not care. I need to win. Greed, in a way, I guess you could say. And I don't necessarily feel like Chase has that quality. But maybe a little bit. Maybe that's new. I don't know.
That's what I was saying, is like, where does the self-satisfaction come from? Is it something every rider desires to win. We know that. But that in this situation, is it a pro or a con? You can argue both ways, but in this championship right now against Webb, particularly as his main title competition, is that a pro or a con to have that mindset?
Okay, so I've heard Webb say multiple times this season, mainly preseason, essentially to paraphrase, I'm not fast enough to beat Jet only. So is there maybe an effort or a part of Chase's subconscious that's like, I'm going to put you in your box so that, yes, you've got your late race charge, yes, you've got your strategy, yes, you've got your quick wit, but let me just knock you down and make you realize that all being well, I've got you. Maybe that's and I don't think that's necessarily needed, or it's something the Chase wants to strive for, but maybe subconsciously that's there. Like, let me just like similar to Rocky when they're yelling like kill him, and it's like, well, he's already down, but it's like, okay, let's just keep killing him.
Like I said, I feel like Webb is one of the very few, like, I don't know how much effect it really would have on, I think, even though, like you said, he talked about Jet, I would think he's fairly aware where Chase's pace is at. So if anything, what happened to Chase does the opposite. It just standing there when Coop came off the podium, he literally pulls his helmet off and is laughing. He's like, what the hell just happened? He was just like, really? Really? Like,
I don't, like, okay, how about this? If Chase doesn't stall it, is this a direct result of Chase stalling it and being fired up that happened? So then Red Mist...
Yeah.
What do you call it? Common sense maybe goes out the window.
Goes out the window.
Yeah. Was this a direct result of that? Maybe that's also a possibility. But I'll also say this: I don't know if Chase doesn't go down there. What does that whoop section look like on the last lap? Because I would imagine he is going to send it into there like no one's ever sent it into a whoop section before. So maybe, in a weird way, this was the best outcome.
Yes, because the whoop, if you got, I mean, you could end up like a Jordan Smith. You could end up, a lot of guys that were sending it would end up veering far left. I mean, you could have launched into the backside of the finish line. If you made it to the end of the whoops, you could launch off the triple off the next berm. So, to your point, yes, the place it happened is better than the later outcome that could have come from it.
I also can't figure out, did he crash because he hit Webb, or every time I watch it, I see it slightly differently, but it looks like he's almost high-siding before he hits Webb, but then maybe that's because he realizes he's hitting Webb, so grabs the brakes.
I think he locks up and props the bike upward, especially because a bowl corner like that, I think he's using a lot of rear brakes, so it stands up the bike, because I think he's aware, because they got off on different, that's what triggered, I looked up, and like I said, I was just kind of waiting for I was actually going to shoot, I thought he was going to maybe try to stuff him again before the whoop, so I was prepared to shoot that direction. And then I looked out of the corner of my eye and saw they got on different rhythms. I'm like, oh, he's going to end up trying to jump to the inside of him. But then I realized what the gain rate was and that Webb cuts down and basically, Webb kind of squares up there. And then, like I said, he doesn't have an option on the high line. And I feel bad. Like Mitchell Harrison was posting on his IG people basically giving the whole go kill yourself. You're a terrible rider, this or that. It's like, yeah, blue flag probably could have moved over a little more and been out of the way getting the corner, but he was also as high up out of the way as he could possibly be. Like, I don't put a lot of that on Mitchell. Just said, and to what Chase says, he saw a gap probably and went for it. The problem is the gap closed. Like, probably more, like the gap closed before he got to it that he thought was going to maybe be there.
How about this then? If Chase has the perspective, has kind of moved on now to maybe look at the bigger picture, is the first main event almost the most concerning? I think that would be like, the first main event is almost the one that, second and third, brilliant, superb, yeah, need to clean up some mistakes, but yeah, well, I'm the man. I feel like the first main event is almost the one that you would hyper-focus on, because that's the one where there's a clear room for improvement. Whereas the room for improvement in the third main and maybe the second, well, yes, and the second, is quite clear.
I think the bright side, at least from what he also said, though, after the second main, is just like they're still sometimes chasing setup a little bit, but they seem to be at least getting better at, like, on race day making the correct decisions. So I don't know. I could take the first main as concern, but I could also take it as a look at how they were able to rebound from it. You know, the decisions, clearly the decision process they made between races was good. The setup changes were good. So you could take it both ways. So I think there is some positives and negatives for the first race.
Do you think less of Chase championship-wise now?
Maybe a tiny bit, because it just opens, kind of like it opens to me that just clear conversation of like, what does Webb's title run look like? Can Chase change the narrative after this weekend? Of course, absolutely. But again, we kind of have a 3-race trend we're going off here. I would be shocked if it continues that way. I mean, we're going into Daytona. We're going to have a first-time winner because nobody actively in the 450 class has won Daytona, correct?
Yep.
So, I don't know. Thinking of the Ryan, so like who, the group, like, it's dumb as it sounds. I'm kind of asking for a prediction, but based off some thoughts of like their riding styles, their current bike setup, their mentality, like, who do you think's the most likely to win Daytona? Like, I think Chase, like how good he was in outdoors last year. Would like to think off the top of my head, like bigger, open, fast track, rough, like work pretty good in outdoors. Like Chase should be. Is he the favorite?
Yeah, I mean, even if you go back to last year, it was Jet, Eli, and Chase up front. So remove Jet and Eli, Chase was ahead of Webb. Like, we have recent evidence to suggest that Chase is the favorite, and he should, again, more room for him to play with. It will or should lend itself to his style. I don't necessarily think it's like a massive necessity for him to get a win immediately to put his train back on the tracks, because I do think that if he's willing to hear it, you just say, you're the fastest guy by miles. Like, 5 points? Yeah, just fuck it. You can win. Yeah. You can win next weekend. You can win the weekend after. You can win the weekend after. Like, don't worry about it. Like, what? Just you made a mistake. Like, you're the fastest guy. Look at this. Look, did you see how much you closed on that last lap? Well done. Like, like there is that very clear positive, which ultimately, if it can be fine tuned, will lead somewhere.
No, I agree with that heavily. I don't think Daytona is a make or break. Oh, we have to go track. We have to stop this points losing streak. The pace is there. If anything, take as a learning lesson next week. If the door is not fully open, maybe don't shove it open in a sense. Like you make it back another round. It's not like, oh man, Webb's just going to if you're in Chase's position.
Well,
Webb winning is within Chase's control whenever whenever it works that he can turn it on the way he does.
Yeah, so, and the opposite isn't true.
Exactly. Because like I said, now that is from Coop's end of the championship, there's that end of like, okay, if I can get the star, if I can pressure him to situations of pushing, look what can happen. So, but in the opposite, if you're Chase, you take a step back, go, well, what I do with the races is within my control. If I want to beat Webb and I have the pace and everything goes gear, I'll beat him. If I want to back it off, I feel like Chase is way more in the driver's seat of what he can do per race. It's just maybe taking the forethought to think about how you want to approach that.
All of this conversation's been quite logical. Let me just throw logic out of the window for a second and
do it.
So what we've decided so far is the spirit of Jeffrey somehow possessed Chase.
Inside of his body. Jesus.
So, how did this happen? Let me tell you. The quad that Chase did on press day was 84 feet. And guess who pointed this out? Guess who pointed this out to just about everyone? That, look.
Oh, you. You in the press box. Just look at
Chase
that.
and Jeffrey, we've got some synergy here. So that's where the ghost of Jeffrey came from. So that's why that happened.
I thought it wasn't it is kind of weird the way the weekend played out because not to say it like as it was the intent, but the big dicking of let's do the quad in press day, like Chase just clicks it out and then starts doing it consistently. Webb tries to do it and ends up out through the tough blocks onto the start straight.
No, I don't think Webb wasn't trying to do it. Webb was
he just
double, triple, double.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
Everybody thought he quadded it.
No, he landed in the pocket before the final double and got whiskey, or it was really weird. There's no reason for him to have crashed there.
It throws the whole thing out the window.
But to summarize, I do respect the send because I'd much rather watch someone wear their heart on their sleeve and throw caution to the wind than just settle and ride around.
So before we get off this subject and on to the deserving winner, Cooper Webb, something you threw me, does this change the position we're in right now, the last couple of races, does it change your title percentage at all? Does it skew your possibility of Webb getting here? Same as I said earlier, does it kind of clear the Webb path for you, how he could do this?
No, I honestly, people I've seen people make a big deal out of the 5 points. I really, and maybe this is crazy, I really believe we're going down to the wire, and we're going to go. We're not going to get a gap either way higher than 7 at any point. I just think we're going down to the wire.
I don't think the actual points lead means anything. Just the fact that just the the path is more. I was curious because if let's say Chase reels off 3 or 4 wins in a row, which Chase can easily do. I was more worried originally, okay, how does Webb bring it back in if it swings the other way and gets close to, like I said, that 7, maybe 8 point range? How does he reel it back in? But then seeing Chase basically go 3 weekends in a row, which again, argument of mistake, within his control, whatever, to lose that many times in a row, points okay, there's a pathway where Webb can do that. That's kind of where my opinion on the championship balance slightly changed a little bit.
Is it just me, or was the whole after race collective just fucking heart wrenching?
Well, I
honestly found it tough to watch, but I am a little bit like that. I do, I get invested in this.
Yeah,
action.
I mean,
so
I was shooting Webb, and I turned around, noticed everybody started pulling around him, and I went over and we all shot it and just kind of watched him go through his emotions, and that was a big one where the night clearly compared to what happened the prior week and definitely affected him because that reaction to me tells everything. And even afterwards, the stance on the side of the podium, just kind of staring out at that section, just kind of glazed over look, just thinking of what could have been basically.
I've got goosebumps now. Heart fucking wrenching. Honestly,
I'd love to ask him, like, what's going through your head? Are you just like, I can't believe I did that? Why did I do that? Or is it, why didn't it work? Like, I should have just nailed, like, I want to know what the mindset was. Was it, I should have just nailed that? Like, what
I don't
the
think
heck?
it's anything that logical. I think it's purely that I should have won that. Fucking hell. Like, I don't think there's any logic there. I think it's just like, I'm the best guy. Why didn't I win that?
Yeah.
But
which,
heart-wrenching.
again, if so, if like the red mist is that strong, it's not a question of where one it's just like, I should have won that. Yeah, but you toss the points.
Also, sidebar. Some people need to have better awareness of not to talk to the riders when they're in these positions.
Oh my God.
Just like, not to toot my own horn, but I feel like if there's one thing I've done good in my fucking entire career is read the room. Some of us need to get better at reading the room. That's all I'm going to say.
Like who?
I don't know.
Like, are you talking about the press conference or?
No, press conferences, whatever.
Yeah, press conference. You're there for there. Did you find somebody trying to hunt him down after the race or no?
I'll tell you after.
I will say, like, the one that talk about cringy. No offense to Phil, but they do the whole VIP thing where people are allowed on the floor for the podiums. Like, again, Chase is on the side of the podium, kind of leaned against the pole there, and there's dads yell, Chase, and they're trying to take a picture. I'm like, dude,
now I'm heart wrenched. Now my heart is wrenching.
The hard part is like Chase was so checked out in his own head. I don't think he even heard them. Like, his eyes didn't even dart toward, like, the motion never changed. I was like, this man is in his own world right now. I was just like, watching the guys kind of yell. And I mean, luckily it seemed like most of them that did it kind of picked up on it. Like, yeah, this is probably a bad idea. But the first couple that started going, I'm like, really? Really? What are you trying to do? Get a photo right now? Give him a thumbs up and tell him it's going to be okay, buddy? Like,
well,
there's nothing you can say or do right now that's going to help. Just stop.
Heart-wrenching, watching all of this go down, heartbreaking. The emotions were high, and all I could think to do to make myself feel better, and don't get me wrong, it didn't work entirely, but it did help a little bit, is I went to decalmx.com and ordered some graphics. Which, again, is it a magic fix? No. But is it a Band-Aid? Yes.
Did you order some little Chase Sexton boys?
I ordered a sticker that said Arlington winner, Chase Sexton. And again, magic potion? No. But Band-Aid? Yes. And I will present that to Chase this weekend in a special ceremony for Lewis and Chase. And thank you to decalmx.com for that.
Every week, I think you can't.
When am I going to get an award? The thing is, also, two things on the decal reads. One, I've had people not understand that the Decal Works reads are, well, they're not even reads because I'm not reading anything, but the Decal Works ads placements are like not really, I think it's like deadly serious. So just to be clear, I didn't do that.
Good cry.
And B, just to toot again, this is always off the cuff. I have no planning for this. I just go with the flow. So well done. Improv in my future. Cooper Webb. Honestly, I could not believe, and I still kind of think I need to double check this, Cooper Webb has not won back-to-back races since 2021.
That would not shock me, that stat whatsoever.
I mean, just pull a back-to-back win in somewhere, and actually the last time was the Arlington residency in 2021 when he swept all of them, which... I don't know, like Webb's won, apart from 2022, Webb has won consistently since. So I just would have presumed in there would have been back-to-back, but I guess not. So that...
So funny to think of, like, I think of Arlington. Yeah, he did win out on the residency in his championship year, but it's kind of funny because I don't know why. I just don't think of Arlington as a coupe track, and I guess... to be honest, probably a part of it is that Arlington historically, before we've gone to the whoop rules, had like an insanely long set of whoop in the center certain years, which actually caught me, in the main because the whoops went to jumpers for a lot of guys pretty early. I was genuinely impressed just with like Coop's skim. Like he does jump still, but he definitely has much more of a skim or die approach this year. Like he does not fall early. He will do whatever works. He'll jump and skim then start jumping, jump where. But watching him pass people that are jumping while he's skimming, I'm like, this is not what Cooper Webb usually does. So my hat's off to him for just putting in the work, doing whatever's necessary.
I was honestly surprised by this as well. So we're agreed that in that last race, Chase's raw speed was quite incredible.
Yes.
Webb had the fastest lap of that race by 0.3. And again, I don't understand how. Because although Webb was riding great, I just feel like, maybe because Chase's raw speed came towards the end when the track was more beat down. Yeah. If you look at it, Chase's best lap came on lap 9, whereas Webb's was lap 5, which isn't a massive difference, but it all counts, I guess. That surprised me.
We get into this track, even though, you start hearing a lot of riders talk about hitting the face, finding slick spots, even though the dirt looks really good. Just the old Webb, cutting down everywhere, especially in the back-to-back S sections. Just he sets himself up so well section to section. Because like I said, you could even see it when Chase was stalking him, even though Chase was killing it. There were certain, I guess you would call it what I would almost say simple sections that he just puts together so well.
I definitely see a little more spunk in Webb's riding this year. A little more intensity, a little more charging rhythm sections. Just all around, nothing major, just there is little nips and tucks in places, which I think he's kind of referenced the fact of riding with the 250 guys at Star and learning from them. It comes from that. But Webb is definitely, I don't want to say a better rider because that's too broad and maybe a disservice to him in the past, but he definitely has 1% more this year, I would say. Minor, because at this level, gains are minor, but there definitely is a small step forward, and he even has said that on multiple occasions as well. He thinks he's riding better than ever. Speaking of better than ever, how about Yamaha Motor USA winning the 450SX class, taking the red plate, sweeping the podium in the 250SX class, taking the red plate. It's all coming up blue, including my mood in Arlington. It's all coming up blue, and Yamaha Motor USA. And thank you to them for supporting this podcast. It's much appreciated. Check out Yamaha for all of their wide variety of motorcycles. One for everyone. If you're a family of 11, there'll be one for every person. Like Goldilocks. This bed's too hard, this bed's too soft, this bed's just right. Well, Yamaha, there's 11 beds. Find the one that fits you. Thank you to them for their support of this podcast.
It's my freedom, it's my fix, it's the endless pursuit of trying to find that flow.
Are we moving on from Webb?
Yeah, we kind of covered him a lot in the Chase situation as well, so I think we've kind of covered the basis.
Okay, so Roczen, is this another... Because realistically, it was on the table for him. So Roczen not winning Arlington. Does this lessen your hope that Roczen gets a win this year? Do you feel like, similar to what I've been saying about Anderson, I guess?
Yep. I hate to say it. I think I told you this last week. The shit that runs through my head when I'm running around a floor taking photos that probably shouldn't. As I watched that go down race to race, I'm like, well, we're going to be comparing him to Anderson on the pod this week. Because, same thing. It's just kind of like, well, the opportunities keep rising. It's so hard. I'm conflicted because on one hand, it's easy to be like, it's awesome to see Roczen in this battle. It's awesome to see him in here consistently. As we had talked about prior, though, based on his past trend, we need to see what things look like past Daytona if you're just going off prior statistics, how he trends through the season. So on one hand, the happy narrative that he's in it, the team's in it, but to watch him keep coming up short on those moments, it is like, oh, well, because one part of me is like, Webb and Sexton aren't going to win out the entire season, are they? Kenny's got to get one. I would think at least one. At one point, a couple weeks ago, I would have thought, okay, this guy's dropped out. I was like, okay, Kenny can get in this and maybe pick up more than one. But yes, not to the Anderson degree, but every time this happened, it does slowly sink that, another opportunity come and gone, another opportunity come and gone.
I could apply the same to Justin Cooper as well, because realistically, he had a brilliant shot at winning this thing. Similar to maybe what we would have said about Plessinger in Detroit a couple of years ago. I don't know when an opportunity this brilliant will come around for Justin Cooper again. So, although it was a brilliant night for him, great riding, great results, certainly a step forward, there's a part of me that's like, that would have been a good one to capitalize on.
Yeah. The tough one comparing the two is No, and again, great step forward for J. Coop, but man, each one of the moments it would happen, I'm just going to put it bluntly, and I don't mean it this harshly, but just like no fight. Like, you know what I mean? Laid up in the corner, like stuff you could see coming a mile away, would square up late, wouldn't try to square down hard enough, wouldn't block somebody, wouldn't cut down and cut their pace. And just little things like the racecraft's not there, like, you know, the other could be like Webb. It couldn't, because of how he would check up, he wouldn't have any momentum to try to swing back at him. Where at least like when we talk about Kenny losing out on his opportunities, the fight is a little more there. You know, the racecraft, the experience shows through, the belief that you can go back after him. There's a part of me that kind of watches what happens with J. Coop, and I'm like, does he not believe he can do this?
Agreed, and this isn't just Arlington specific. I believe we've said it at other rounds this year. But on the other side of the coin, in the second main event when Chase ran it up the inside of him in the first turn, I genuinely believe that was Chase thinking this guy will just roll over. So I'm semi-impressed. I mean, J. Coop clearly had the line, so I guess it's not like he stayed in it really aggressively, but still semi-impressed that he didn't just roll over in that scenario, because I would guess the reason Chase ran it in there is he just expected him to, which is kind of a transition everyone goes through in this class. You need to kind of earn the respect from the big dogs. And yeah, so although I agree with you with that criticism of J. Coop, there was one moment where I was like, fair play for staying in it. But to not even end up on the podium with how well that night was going for J. Coop, yeah. He also admitted that he was mentally and physically a bit fried entering the last main event, just because knowing what was on the line.
Well, it's got to be 2 in a row if you haven't been in that position a whole shot, the pressure, everything. Even though they're shorter mains, you can imagine by the third one, you're just like, oh my God, is this going to happen again? Great one on the start, actually. It's funny, me and LeBig were standing in the first corner, and he's like, who's going to get the whole shot? And we were like debating between, I think, Webb and Sexton, and I randomly threw out throwaway comment. I'm like, yeah, it'll probably be J. Coop, actually. Then he whole shots. We walked back the second time. He's like, whole shot? I'm like, it's going to be J. Coop again. Wow. I really thought he was going to get the third.
It's the Yamaha power. It's the Yamaha power. J. Coop is also, there's a chance that Justin Brayton will head out to the goat farm and help him skim whoops, because there is definitely a sense of urgency from Star to get him skimming whoops. Not that it necessarily held him back in Arlington.
I was about to say the one thing I'll give him is at Arlington, he definitely made the best of it. And it's so funny to think of the comparison with his teammate Webb. Like, I got to give him props. There was times I'd see him in the section like Kenny trying to make the run on guys, trying to make it happen by skimming, and he would just hold it off enough. I'm like, you know, he's doing a good job with it. A lot better than he was at, like, say, was it A2? I mean, he was jumping second practice, and it was not good jumping.
But a set of whoops like this out of not a 90-degree turn, but not a 180 bowl turn, that's always going to open itself up to jumping better. And I think that's why they took out the inside berm in the morning, because a lot of riders were like, with that inside berm there, everyone's just jumping from there. Like, you've basically made it a jumper before we've even hit a wheel on the track.
Kind of weird where that corner had so much of a hook. It was interesting to watch guys come out, because I get it. Everybody loads. You come off a fast start straight, you're dragging in, the bike loads, and everybody kind of overloads throttle and clutch on such a hook out. It kind of messed up for some guys skimming in, because the bike would get so upset trying to get onto the first one. Like, there would be so much chatter coming into the first one. It was really interesting to watch guys just set up like who could get through that and manage to get on the whoops, versus guys that would almost enter the first whoop and come to a stop because the rear would just skip all the way up onto the first whoop.
Continuing the run of Justin's, Justin Hill turned up. First pole position since Arlington 2020. I honestly have no idea what you even say, because this isn't necessarily a surprise, because we know how fast he is. So I guess roll the dice and see if this happens again.
Hey, the gap in time qualifying was impressive, though, to also get it. And I think he went on the board pretty early. I remember looking up and being like, oh, okay, you got a lap gun early, and just nobody could dethrone it.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Very impressed. But again, like, I saw him on our flight home day, and just he keeps saying the same thing. He's just, at that point in his career where he wants to give this one last like real shot and show what he's got in the tank. So it's so weird to hear a guy say that and just be like, yeah, I'm really trying this year.
I would have liked to ask him if, similar to J. Coop, he was putting a lot of pressure on himself prior to the final main, and that's why the starts went away. But honestly, even after the bad start, Hill was just kind of not exactly relevant. So it was like I was wondering where the magic went, because copy and paste the pace from the start of the night, he would have cut through the field a million times faster than he did. But that is the mystery that is Justin Hill, I guess. And I think that's why, because there is this contingency of fans desperate for him to get the HRC fill in.
Yeah.
What's funny is it's just too risky.
Too risky, and like, okay, I know. I think people that really think about this should understand this, but this has come up before when there's been riders in a situation who could probably get on a factory bike for 4 or 5 rounds, but they're this already deep in the season, they like what they have. Like, there's actually a higher chance that it won't go good. It's not, don't get me wrong, HRC Honda's amazing. It's not going to be magic for Justin. He's not just going to hop on it the next week. And this may sound insane, but I've talked about his team situation, and he absolutely loves his situation. Like, he said, hands down, bike, atmosphere, what control he has, everything. He said it's the happiest he's ever been in his racing career. So I don't see him throwing that away to go jump on an HRC bike for, half a season.
No, but and equally in the same breath, I don't expect Honda HRC to run over to Justin Hill and be like, you're our guy.
And talking to like Brandon Wilson, those guys, like, look, they had Jet and Hunter. You're not going to match those results. So at this point, I don't think it's really a results play. It's a little bit of feel good story. That's how I think it's leaning more towards like the Dean situation, the Shane situation. Like, it's, hey, let's make it easy. Let's not also hurt our established partners like Quadlock and Phoenix with their situations. Let's pick the guys that need some help right now. Let's get some feel good. Let's focus on our 250 guys as racing and just kind of get through the year. That's kind of the vibe I get. Because like I said, if you wanted to go off a best available guy on paper to get results, you would lean towards Hill. But again, when you're Hill, like, how is that going to be for Hill? It's not going to go anywhere. He's not going to be there in the future. It's not going to make another factory team want him. Is he going to throw away half a season of developing his platform and his program to do that? It doesn't make a lot of sense when you really break it down.
No, agreed. And moving on to the third Justin in our lineup, Barcia was much better. Even if you look away from the results, just the riding, the aggression, the intensity, it was raw Justin Barcia. So,
oh yeah, a lot of panic revving, a lot of good clutching, but it looked and felt much more like Justin.
Yeah, and even after the race, he didn't seem as much as emotional, which is a positive step. Although I have to admit, him passing Chase in the final corner of the last main event, as it was going down, I was like, oh, don't take Chase out. Like, that is the last thing that needs to happen right now. And also, it kind of reminded me of Michael Essie crashing at Redbud in 2008 or whenever it was. And, like, the last guy just comes and lands on him. That was Barcia passing Chase in the final corner. Like, we're like, okay, it's done. Oh, and here's one more just little tough moment.
I'll tell you this. I caught part of it, but somebody else caught more of it. It didn't go over well.
What? Justin passing Chase?
The way it happened last turn with the KTM guys, it didn't go over super well. There were some comments made. They were not super stoked.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Well. Also, I wanted to say about Chase, actually, one more note. The thing that makes me more negative about this situation is, do you not feel like all day I felt like Chase was in a chipper mood? Just body language, the things he was doing in practice, the way he approached practice, even down to like the hot lap for opening ceremonies. He did a stoppie down the start straight in the hot lap, and I was like, I never see him do that. That just always plays in my mind of like, that rider is in a good place today. Just so that cool twist of fate.
Clicked out that huge quad, clean lap after lap and press day. Like, a great mood, overall great riding. So yeah, definitely is kind of like kicking him, knocking him down a peg in terms of maybe attitude placement.
Aaron Plessinger had his best result of the season, a 7th, which it's not much, but it's a step forward, I guess. He was
I hate to say it
positive.
Still feels so invisible during the race. Like, it's definitely, I'm not trying to, it's positive, but man, I said this a while back, like, it's somebody in his situation, even though he won last year, it is not easy to gather yourself back up when it has started this route. It doesn't just magically turn into a 5th or a 4th the next weekend. I know we'd all love to see it. It would be a better talking point than being like this little chipping away, but it's going to be a little bit of a long year for him. Hopefully it just keeps improving, but I feel like it might be in for a long one.
We did figure out that Detroit and Arlington, his starts are back, which must mean that he is happier with bike setup, because there's no way he's getting those starts if he isn't confident in his package. So that is the glimmer of hope here, which I do agree with, because as we've discussed, I am a big starts are confidence guy.
Yep.
Malcolm Stewart was just confused. I've never seen a rider so flippant and just like, I don't know, man. Yeah, crazy. I don't know what to tell you. Like, yeah, it just didn't work. Yeah, crazy. Bike setup. Yeah, I don't know. He was just flippant is the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
He had no clue what happened, no clue where he could have been better, no clue why he got the results he did. Just like, yeah, who knows? So, but in a good mood with it, you could tell he just let it go as one of those things that we'll never understand, one of life's great mysteries.
Good for him. I mean, it is definitely, again, we said this last week and after the win, not to say everybody's in this boat, but I saw people like, it's it. He's going to be racing into this championship. Wins are coming. And I'm like, or it could revert to where it's been. At least on the bright side, he said there's a good attitude behind it. But man, it's like, how can you go? And I'm not saying this like against it, but it is just the interesting part of our sport. You can go from being a second and a half a lap or whatever faster than Chase Sexton, winning a race, going a second faster than anybody in the whoops, to just kind of being there the next week.
All I have to say about Jason Anderson is that move on Justin Barcia was dumb. And
I did not catch that from the floor. I missed that.
I thought we were better than this. I thought we'd moved on. And this is spiraling out of control for Jason Anderson, I feel. We are a long way from the positivity of Anaheim 1 and Anaheim 2 at this point. So, and I don't exactly expect Daytona to be his turning point.
I was going to joke. It seems so his night. I completely almost forgot that he got second in the final main.
Yeah, that a 12-17-2 scorecard is bizarre.
I agree.
Let's jump to 250s.
Hey, well, one quick one. Got to give hats off to Oldenburg. Come on.
I feel like I've done this all season. I feel like I've been an Oldenburg supporter, have I not?
I feel like on the pod we get to about this point and we skip.
I feel like I have been an Oldenburg guy all year.
As Mitchell has told me at like 3 or 4 races this year, just nobody talks about me, man. Nobody talks about me.
I'm a Mitchell guy, low key. But yeah, good job to Mitchell Oldenburg. He is. I was going to say he's proving his worth, but then I don't know if he can really go beyond this. Like, I feel like this is just a good spot for him. Like, he's not going to get a ride at a Kawasaki, etc. So
I think it's awesome on base part. I mean, I think most people would have thought, they kind of muled over who the second guy was going to be. I think a lot of people saw how good Benny was on the bike last year. And it was like, oh, Benny will be the main player on the team. Mitchell will be interesting. And Mitchell's getting, arguably some of his best 450 results on their program. And he's a much different, because of Benny's size. I heard Spiel last year, oh, maybe you got to be a big guy to ride the beta. So Mitchell definitely showing that's not the case and kind of showing those guys are moving forward. Again, he's just been every week just a little better. Nice and consistent. And then the other one I was just going to throw out there is, I don't know where Jerry finally figured out how to ride a 450 in Supercross the last couple of weeks, but much better night for him as well.
250 class. This cannot be a result of 2 weeks of working with Gareth Swanepoel. And also, hold on a minute. So, well publicised that Christian Craig goes to Monster Energy Yamaha Star Racing as 450 rider / Hayden Deegan riding coach. Part 1. Part 2. Hayden says on press day, I'm no longer working with Christian Craig. That program didn't work for me. I need the intensity of Gareth Swanepoel's program, blah, blah, blah. So that's where I am. However, I now have people telling me that, and I kind of know this to a degree, that Degan was always on Swanepoel's program. there was never a Christian Craig program. Craig was just the middleman. So there's some internal debate on the verbiage of has Hayden Deegan left a Christian Craig program because was he ever on a Christian Craig program?
I think the Craig program was more like as we said, it was kind of like they tried to buckle down and go. He did expand on it a little bit. Like, yeah, Gareth's been doing the physical side and a lot of what the riding portion looked like, but they had separated themselves, a bit from the group, doing their own thing. They were staying in Cali early on the West Coast while everybody was going back and forth. He rides different days. He has one of his own tracks. There are other tracks nearby. But they tried to buckle down and go, hey, let's go one-on-one with a riding coach in this case, like Christian just overviewing everything and giving input. And his dad just served people, just the whole group, like, let's focus on Hayden and see what happens. And they pretty much decided that part did not work very well. So I would say that the transition is back to being more in with the 250 guys. But to your point, yes, it's not, we went from a full Christian Craig program to a full Gareth program. Like, the physical side and the riding program itself was still pretty much Gareth. It was just like them doing it kind of on their own with their own different type of supervision. Is that a way to word it?
And I know for a fact that maybe not every time, but I feel like I got the impression that 70% of the time, Hayden was riding with all of the 250 guys. Like, Hayden was not just on his own all off-season. Obviously when they stayed in California, he was, but I don't necessarily believe that was a Christian plan, because I'm sure Christian would have liked to have been at home with his family. So, I don't know. This feels like a very murky situation on how you word it and because Hayden was quite clear. He was like, yep, I'm no longer on the Christian Craig program. I'm back to Gareth Swanepoel. And then as people are like, well, no, Christian was just a middleman. So nobody knows. But since Glendale, I believe like Monday after Glendale, the team did decide that Hayden was back in the fold with everyone else, which to me is very similar to Webb leaving Baker's and then returning to Baker's when the results weren't there. And Christian is, to clarify, the team told him they would like him to focus on all the 250 guys now. So inclusive of Hayden, but not just Hayden. So Craig is now, or was always, again, confusing, was always / is now Gareth's right-hand man, helper, assistant. I don't know how you want to call that.
That was how it was kind of more originally worded, but we all kind of were like, well, yeah, but he's like Hayden's guy, even though like it was announced that he would be assisting the 250 team from input and riding expertise and things of that nature is how it was originally worded, but it was always like, yeah, but he's kind of just like Hayden's guy.
Well, and also this is just one of those situations where I just kind of back away because I'm like, I don't know how to word this or talk about this, so it seems like a lose-lose situation. But I was there at Star on the first day of boot camp for Supercross in October, and Craig on that day was helping all of the 250 guys. Deegan wasn't there, but then I think Deegan was still recovering from his wrist surgery. So that's why. But Craig was out there helping Thrasher, helping Max. So I don't know. But Craig, I think the important thing to communicate here is Craig is still very much in at Star. He's just been repositioned slightly. I think there's a concern that this will come across like Craig's been clipped, but that is very much not the case. And also, he was maybe going to return for Daytona, but it looks like he would definitely be back at Indianapolis. So that'll be a great story, fascinating story. But back to the original point, there's no way that this 2-week change made Hayden that much better. I think it's just Hayden's better in East Coast tracks with ruts. What says you?
Maybe, yeah, I could lean a little bit. I don't know if it was just, I mean, one part that he was fairly straight with, and I mean, to an extent I agree with, is you look at how he rode last night versus the West Coast rounds. Yes, the intensity looks different, whether that's comfortability with dirt, bike setup, surroundings, or whatever it is last week. Yeah, he's been saying he hasn't really said it this year, but the last 2 years, every time I asked him, race, oh, how was it? I just went out there and sent it. Well, he looked like he sent it last night. He looked like he had an edge when he wanted to be able to pick up the pace. I'm trying to think of what moto it was. Was it the second race at the end when he just like absolutely sent the sand section standing up? Like a couple things like that where I was just like, okay, this reminds me much more of like, I don't know if on West, like Hayden was just trying to be early in the year, like too polished on riding technique. Does that make sense? Like if they just were so focused on technique that sometimes his just throw it out the window riding wasn't there.
Yeah, maybe.
That was back a little bit. That was one thing kind of where the whole one-on-one thing comes from. I was like, okay, and he's talked about a lot because I think he knew like he's got a, especially his early pro style was very bulldogish at times. Like, okay, did they get too wrapped up in getting him technique wise riding well? Because when I watched him at the opening rounds, I'm like, yeah, there's little things he does on the bike that are a lot cleaner, a lot more efficient than he used to do. But like I said, it was also just kind of missing coming race time. Like, okay, where's the part where he just kind of mixes good technique with letting it loose when it's needed?
Yeah, but is that not... I go back to the East Coast tracks allow him to do that.
I think so a bit. Like I said, Dallas, though, like even though it looks good, it's still slick underneath. Like I said, maybe it's a mix of more comfortable on that dirt, just how the week went. I do agree with you in that sense, though. Like I think a part of it might be track conditions because, yeah, we had it again this weekend. But then, like, okay, West Coast, like, go to, like, Washougal National the last 2 years, like, how hard he sent it when it's hard pack. He can do it when it's hard pack. He's a Cali kid.
Yeah, but...
There's just something was not working. First couple was not coming together.
I put that down to better outdoor rider than indoor.
Yeah.
I think that's quite clear-cut as well. But at this point, Degan is the... Do you say clear favourite?
I feel like this always cracks me up with 250 regional. Sorry, now we're supposed to call it divisional. 250 divisional Supercross.
Or just division, not divisional, division.
Division. Well, it sounds weird to say 250 division Supercross.
Well, it's 250 SX West division.
Yeah, but I'm talking about divisional. I'm talking about both divisions at this point. Divisions?
Well, that would be divisions. I don't think divisional is a word.
Google it. Pretty sure divisional is a word. Anyways, you Google it while I continue speaking. Just the swing, like we went from being early round or round one or two, like, yep, this is Hayden's championship, to, oh my God, it's not Hayden's championship. Like Juju's got a shot and Jordan, and then Jordan, and Beaumer has lost his way. And now it's Hayden's title again, and I don't see how anybody's going to beat him.
I also think that come the East, and I thought this before Juju's injury, but come the East-West showdown of the West riders, Degan is maybe best suited to just get a whole shot and run away of the West riders. And as we know, the East is deeper, so the showdowns will have more of an effect on the West Coast points than they will East Coast, just for that matter. There's more top riders on the East. But let's jump to Juju. I feel like a bit of a twat because all night I'm like sat in the press box going, what's wrong with Juju? This is terrible. Look at the track position he's lost. Look, this is terrible. What has happened? And then he drops it after the race that he dislocated his shoulder in practice. And that changes everything because now I'm like, look at Juju. What an incredible ride. What a hero.
I'm trying to think of what he did in practice because I remember watching him pull off and grab his mechanic.
It was well, I presume it was his crash.
It's when he landed on the tough blocks, right?
Tripling into the second rhythm section.
And I agree with your sense. It does explain more of that. But like in general, you look at just the last 2 rounds before this, do you feel like in general, not just the shoulder thing, do you feel like we lost our way a little bit from the opening 2 rounds?
No, the 2 rounds before Arlington were fine. Okay, yeah, the mistakes in Glendale, but they were fine. Like the speed, if anything, in a similar breath to Chase, if you want to lean on the speed element, you could argue that Glendale was in fact his best ride of the year because he really looked superior to Degan, just in a raw speed aspect. Kind of similar to how Degan looked compared to Juju this weekend.
Well, I was going to say, to me, like, I think Glendale, like Davies to me was the standout speed.
Yeah, I guess I'm just focusing on title contenders, which Davies is to a degree.
Yep.
But no, so Juju dislocated his shoulder in practice, popped it back in, went riding, racing, has an MRI on Tuesday just to see if there's any ligament damage or anything serious, but was quite stern in the fact of like, I don't care what that says, I'm going to Indy, I'm 6 points down, I'm going for this championship. Which, I mean, the fact that he managed to, I think he went 8.64, 6.84, the fact that he did that leads me to believe the shoulder can't be that bad. Like, surely they're not going to find out that this is a season ender, because you wouldn't be able to do that otherwise.
Yeah, the only thing is, of course, well, bright side, weekend off to deal with it, rehab it, whatever it might be. Bright side. Downside is if there is some weakness in it, if it does affect his riding in any shape or form, is we are going into an East-West shootout where his main competition in the championship seems to be back to firing on all cylinders. So the timing, of course, is very rough from a championship perspective. It almost couldn't happen at a worse time when you're down points. When you were a red point leader, you're now down points. You might be dealing with a little bit of an issue, and you're going to go into the toughest race you've had so far of the year in East-West shootout.
Well, if they need to loosen up the joint, they could always pour some Motorex oil on there, or they could just continue to put it in the bike, which is what it's designed for. Thank you to Motorex for coming on board the Vital MX post-race show. Motorex, known for high-quality engine oils, also has an entire line of clean, care, and lube products to keep your bike running strong and looking great. Maintenance mode made easy with race-proven Motorex clean, care, and lube products. Thank you to Motorex for their support of this podcast. Motorex, of course, a historic brand, well known, and needs little introduction to the listeners and viewers of this show. Over to you to give us a Cody Shock rundown. Please keep it within 3 to 4 minutes.
Okay, first career podium. That's all.
Okay, so not to start this off negatively, but to start the third main event, he was like 7 points clear of fourth overall, and we were centimeters away from being knocked off the podium. And similar to what we were saying about Jacob, if he had fumbled this opportunity and missed the podium when even a win was looking quite possible, that would have been heartbreaking. So the fact that he held on quite important, not only because of a career milestone, but also for his psyche moving forward, I would say.
No, I'll take it as all positive at this point.
Okay, you've got nothing else to say?
No, because you're always just gonna make fun. I mean,
I'm not making fun. I don't have anything to say about Cody Shock. You're the expert.
I am the expert, but
so off you go.
Just no, I could still give him crap. Third main was a little bit rough, but the first two are good. The starts are better again. They've made some bike changes, some old lessons. I laughed talking to him, things that we had learned one time that had gone out the window and come back around. Just him, because he's not the most best with throttle application. Just going to some different clutch settings that kind of like smoothing out the hit, mapping, things like that, just to change power delivery, he said, has been helping him a lot. They have not been riding. Like most people have been complaining about weather. Club's been a swamp of rain shit show the last couple weeks. So I think he said he rode since Glendale 1 day of Supercross. He rode his 125 outdoors a hell of a lot more than they rode Supercross. So they did like one major day of suspension testing, tweak some clutch stuff. So no like mind blowers there in terms of progress, like from on the bike the last 2 weeks. Just a little bit of setup stuff going stiffer, and then the clutch stuff he said helped a lot with starts, just calming the bike down and getting it off the gate a little bit better.
How does he do at Daytona?
I'm curious. I mean, 250, 450 class, like when I went there with him in 21, he almost had his first career podium there till it went all to hell with 4 laps to go. He ran third for 12, 13 minutes in 250 back in 21. I mean,
if you use Oldenburg as a baseline.
So like what, a 14th? I mean, he'll make the main on a 250 a day. I'm very confident. I think like 15th or so is like where he should be.
I don't think he'd be able to beat Oldenburg.
Yeah. It also, like, I haven't even looked at the layout. I feel like some of that could be very dependent on layout at Daytona. It's the one track where you're like, bringing a 250 is really bringing the 5 The only saving grace is at the end. But, man, if you could pick one race to really shoot yourself in the foot, that's it. But he'll have fun with it. I am curious, like, the rest of the season, I would love to see a repeat podium. It's going to be interesting. Like, it is... He still needs to take another step in terms of raw speed to kind of, it would take a lot to like heads up run with a Davies or a Juju or Hayden on the right night. But there's another step up to be able to run there consistently so he can capitalize on evenings like this for these other guys. I think, there's still a big gap to truly being there with them. But there's a next step he'll take where he will be a consistent guy to capitalize on these moments.
I don't have much to say about Michael Moserman, but this continues his trend upwards. Great to see. Looks like a potential winner, although that'll be tough because we've got, for the West guys especially, I think they have 2 more traditional races. The rest are Triple Crowns or Showdowns. So, yeah, not exactly many opportunities for a straight shot.
Yeah, what do they have? Denver and Seattle are there only 2 traditional races?
Yeah, I think so. Because, they've got 3 Showdowns coming up and 5 rounds left. But
so crazy they had 2 Triple Crowns back to back.
Yeah, and a lot of people, I saw some tweets or somewhere, people being like, how could they schedule for 250 West to have 2 Triple Crowns back to back? And my mind immediately went to like, with all due respect, that doesn't matter to the powers that be because this is a feeder division. Like, I don't think that plays like this, like, not to be a dick, but like, yeah, this is a feeder division.
Yeah. It is funny though. It really does play into like how many people will show up though when you do 2 back-to-back Triple Crowns and then you immediately have an East-West following it. It does kill the participation on West Coast pretty quick.
Well,
they're just like in refs. So, I mean, if you can't make it, that is what it is. But it is funny how that kind of times out. Starts from a really strong opening season, an easy schedule for guys to get in on West, and then it goes all to hell.
Joe Shimoda was much, much, much better, as expected. And let me tell you, first of all, about Fox Racing. With a rich heritage and deep racing DNA, Fox Racing has been at the forefront of motocross for 50 years. They empower the world's best athletes like Jorge Prado, Ken Roczen, Levi Kitchen, and Joe Shimoda to chase their dreams. With their gear, dreamers become champions. They honour the past while inventing tomorrow, pushing the limits of racewear and protection. Because at Fox, change is the only constant. Shop their new elevated future limited edition collection by visiting foxracing.com. And at this point, I must admit a weakness that last week I said that Levi Kitchen was Fox's first win of the season. I completely let Joe Shimoda's Anaheim 1 win slip my mind, and that is my bad. So I apologize to Joe Shimoda for not giving him due credit. And then also, let me tell you about the Yoshimura pipe that Joe Shimoda has attached to his CRF 250R. But less so about the pipe. Let me tell you, if you head over to yoshimura-rd.com, in the navigation bar at the top, there is a where to buy section. And there, you can put in your make, your model, your year, and it will tell you where Yoshimura products are in your area at authorized dealers, etc., what's in stock. Brilliant tool. And that is, once again, yoshimura-rd.com. I was amazed when I found this tool. I feel like it's of great use to all of you. So walk, don't run, to yoshimura-rd.com. But Joe was much better. And that was to be expected. Also, maybe the most aggressive I've seen him. I can't exactly recall the moment. There was a pass he made on, maybe it was Juju in the last corner at some point, and I was like, wow, that may be the most aggressive I've ever seen Joe Shimoda.
He did that the last round of Glendale. He almost he got a little out of hand. He almost murdered Cody. Actually got super aggressive with him in a corner. Definitely some of the most aggression I've seen on Joe. It was nice to be able to see him do practice laps. Pretty much since the hand incident, you would just see him roll around all practice and do one half-ass lap time to get into the show. So to actually see him be able to do laps and put sections together. Also, very nice that he actually ran I think they ran 2 hand guards on.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
They did for a little bit because it's like. I can't remember how many riders I ran into. Go, man, that would bother me so much just to see one on the motorcycle. And I try to process. I'm like, just screw with my head too much.
Wrapping this up, Cole Davies was very fast, but a little bit crashy. 4:17.1. But I have to give him mass credit because him skimming the whoops in the final main event, that was sketchy and the commitment never wavered. So,
do you know who else skimmed the whole time? Is Moseman, but he would do it right against the tough block, and it scared me so bad. Cole was kind of more in the middle, which is also scary because that's where the V dip was. But nobody else was basically doing that other than those two.
And then I also wanted to give Lux Turner some credit because that was quite impressive consistently as well. It wasn't just a flash in the pan one race. He was really, maybe a standout.
Another decent sound would be Reynolds' 10th place. I mean, Jed has beyond struggled to even line up for a Supercross race for years now. And I'll be honest, even the way this season was starting, I was very questioning if he could even get into the top 10 this year. So 14, 9, 13, a little bit outside the top 10 with 2 of those results, but still a nice bit of progress for him as well.
And then final point, Jordan Smith, punctured lung, possible fractured ribs and a slight concussion, minor concussion, whatever terminology you want to use. I wouldn't rule out him racing in Indianapolis. It sounds like there is some sort of, not urgency, but intent to get him back on tracks. I don't think it's that serious, which is terrible to say because obviously that's quite a list, but it doesn't sound like he's going to be out for long, is the vibe I get at least. But obviously how cruel Supercross can be, a lap or two away from potentially winning a race, underlining your position as championship contender, and in a blink of an eye you're being carted off on a backboard. So tough breaks for Supercross and Triumph.
And I am mind blown that his shoulder isn't destroyed. Compare it to Hunter's crash on a shoulder, you'd be like, oh man, I can't believe something happened. Jordan just shouldered head first into the ground. I can't believe his isn't dislocated, broken scapula, broken collarbone, something.
If there was ever a crash that the Alpine Stars Tech Air MX was made for, it was that crash. That was like a poster child for that product.
Yeah, they should lend him Austin Faulkner's for a little while.
Well, who would have thought? Austin Faulkner, the rock of Triumph Factory Racing. If you need someone to turn up to the races, you go to Austin Faulkner. You don't even doubt it.
Say that.
Touch wood.
If something happens at Daytona, I'm referencing this.
He's got the Tech Air MX on. Nothing can happen.
God,
touch wood. No, right. Brilliant. I think we're done, right?
Yeah.
Obviously we're all still heartbroken over the events that we saw after the 450 main event, but we move on. Just waiting for that.
I was going to say one last one. Get well soon to Chase Curtis. What?
I was just going to say his GoFundMe is circulating on social media, so maybe check that out if you want to.
Yeah, Henry Miller got a little squirrely in the 450 LCQ and shot off and it pinned Chase between a starting structure. I came around the corner as the medics there, and Chase had broken his leg, was it 9 or 10 months ago riding, and it broke it right below the hardware pretty bad. Poor guy was in a lot of pain, but get well soon, Chase. I'm sorry, man. He's sitting in a hospital in Texas. I think he had surgery this morning, so he will be out for a little while.
Supercross is dangerous. What can you say?
Photo video guys, run for it.
Well, press box can also get a little hairy at times.
What? Because you guys ran out of coffee?
Well, I don't drink coffee, so that's no.
Because
that's
ran out of coffee because the pizza didn't get delivered.
We had McDonald's this weekend.
We had instant ramen.
We got McDonald's delivered, which is quite something. Anyway, that is besides the point. Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you to Decal Works, Yoshimura, Yamaha Motor USA, Fox Racing, and Motorex for their support of the Vital MX post-race show. That is the 7th edition of this year complete. We will be back in a week's time to discuss round 8 at Daytona. And also this week, we will have an MXGP preview show up because we are now deep into that season, although excitement is potentially at an all-time low. Still, check out the podcast because maybe we'll find something exciting.
Well, we have a Lucas Kunin confirmation there.
This will make no sense, but as far as I can find out, broke both arms, had surgery, racing this weekend. Don't know how that works. And I don't know if that's 100%, but I've had that. That's the most consistent report I've had.
That's what I heard too this weekend. I thought it was wow. Okay.
So I don't know how that works. Don't ask me. All I know is I'm heartbroken still. But we move on to Daytona. Thank you everyone for watching and listening. We will see you next week.